Hello, humans and extraterrestrials. Hello, extraterrestrials and humans. Doesn't matter, same thing. Anyway, hello, folks. So today I am, well, firstly, ignore all the mess in the background. I have had a busy week full of studying and schoolwork and all of that sort of jazz. And I haven't had time to clean it yet. And after I do this video, I will, but I want to film this first because this is going to take a while. So, this is a second channel video, which you will be aware if it says Summer is a huge nerd in there and you know me. If not, this is a warning that this TBR video is going to be very messy, and honestly I don't know if I'll do any editing on this. I'll just sort of leave it be to just exist in the world. This is, see, it's already high quality content. This is my TBR, like all of my entire TBR, in no particular order really. I have a lot of books here. I don't know how many. Probably, I think maybe in the 30s, perhaps 40s. That's some noise. However, I don't know exactly how many, but it'll say how many in the description, and I'll count them as I go, so you will find out at the end of the video, I guess. But also be warned that this will be a long video, and I don't really know what I'm talking about, but we're going to go through these. So the first one is Terry Pratchett and Neil Gaiman's Good Omens. Now, if you are observant, you will see that I already have some stickings in the first sort of third of this book, and that's because I did try to start reading it, God, when? Like maybe 3 months ago. I was still at work, so it would have been about 3 months ago. I really enjoyed this book when I started reading it. Again, enough so for me to point out all the queer moments, I think. Yeah, a lot of my sticky notes are like, that's gay. Let me find one. Yeah, well they call a character something rude, and I responded to it accordingly. But yeah, this book is, if you are unaware, it's sort of about the beginning of Armageddon, and this angel and this demon called Aziraphale and Crowley, and their lives throughout 6,000 years together. I did watch the show of this before I was aware it was a book, because I am uninformed and didn't know that this was a book that Terry and Neil had done together. But I watched the show and I loved the show, and now I want to read the book in full, but I haven't had a chance yet. So here we are. Okay, next one. Lion, formerly known as, published as A Long Way Home, a memoir by Saru Brearley. This is a book about a boy named Saru, obviously, who is trying to find his way back home, basically. He's an Indian kid. He boarded a train alone one day and he got lost, and now he's trying to find his way back home, basically. This is the motion picture copy of this book, which is not the cover I would like, but I remember buying this when the film came out, obviously, and looking and going, oh, I'd really like to read this, it looks really interesting. It's also not a particularly long book, it's only like 250 something pages. Yeah, 260 pages, so it's not a long book. I think I started reading it and I just sort of went, this is too much for me right now, because it is like, it's a lot. You have to be aware that what you're reading is a lot, but from what I remember, it's incredibly good, and I would like to try and read it again. There will be a few here that I tried to read and I sort of went and then, but I want to go back to them, but some of them I've just never gotten a chance to read yet. Okay, so next is a series, my first series. I have a few of these. This is Leigh Bardugo's Shadow and Bone trilogy. Woo, I've never read these before. I know BookTube, how controversial. Before we even mention anything, can I just talk about how these are such pretty covers? I've seen lots of other covers of the book. I know the original covers of the book. I think these are so much prettier. I don't know the context of any of them yet, but they're so much prettier. I read the first one of the, or sorry, I tried to start reading Shadow and Bone. and I semi-enjoyed it, but I wasn't in the mood for a fantasy novel when I started reading it. Honestly, that's mostly the reason. I just wasn't in the mood for a fantasy, dystopian-y, sort of whatever in Earth you would call this series book. But I will go back to them at some point. I was gonna unhaul these, but I thought no, because I genuinely would like to try and read them again at some point. And I also just, it's such nice covers. It's horrible. I shouldn't use that as a reason, but they're just such nice covers. So yeah, we'll see. Also, I have my bookshelf in front of me, so there are certain ones here that I've just taken out of this bookshelf that I will just shove back in, because that's where I think they should go. Okay, the next one I have here, the next 5 I have here, I'll go through. I have a bunch of Shadowhunter books here that I haven't yet read. The first of which is the Infernal Devices series. All of these books are by Cassandra Clare, if you weren't aware. Cassandra Clare's The Infernal Devices. I read The Mortal Instruments years ago, maybe in 2017 even. And I loved them, and then I watched the show and I loved them. I tried to start reading The Infernal Devices ages, like a while after that, and I kind of wasn't really like, I wasn't, again, I think I often just pick up a fantasy book and then I'm realising I'm not in the mood for a fantasy book. But I will go back to them, and I would love to go back to them and read them at some point. Maybe even in the near future, but we don't know because I have a lot of books here to read. So yeah, the next I have 2 other books by Cassandra Clare and some other people, which is The Bane Chronicles and Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy. So The Bane Chronicles is the stories of this. These are unfortunately, well, this is unfortunately the film cover of this book, because I don't know if it has another one. Because this is, I can't remember what the hell the actor's name is, but this is the actor from the film, or at least it looks like the actor from the film of City of Bones, which I didn't enjoy, just in case you were, anyone was on the fence. But this is basically about Magnus Bane, and about his life and some things that happen in his life. This is, I think, a big book. Well, I mean, it looks big, but it's not that big actually. It's only, I think it's because it's split so much that it looks big, but it's only 400 and something pages, so I can get through it, relatively quickly. And there's pictures, so yeah. But this is basically Magnus Bane's life and stories throughout his life. And Tales from Shadowhunter Academy is kind of, it's like, Tales from the Shadowhunter Academy is kind of like what happens after Heavenly Fire, I think. I think. Maybe. I don't know. I'm not entirely sure yet, but why am I, this is where I put this, isn't it? Oh no, it's not. But yeah, I think that's where we are with it for now. But yeah, I want to read them all, and I want to catch up with it. God, I've done like 5 books. I need to go kicker. But I want to catch up with the series again, because I loved the series when I started it, and I don't like Cassandra Clare, and I think what she's doing is not incredibly innovative or crazy. But I want to finish these books, and the fact I bought these before I was aware of my dislike for her, so I don't want my dislike for her to be ruinous of my enjoyment of these books, because I already own them. So yes. Okay, moving on to something incredibly different. Joan Aitken's The Wolves of Willoughby Chase. This is a children's book that's only 200 or so pages. That is my mother's copy that she wants me to read this book. This was one of her favourite books as a youngin, or as a child. I don't know when it came out, so maybe she wasn't a child when she read it. It seems like an old book, but honestly, I don't know. Yeah, as a child. But I think I maybe read the first 10 or so pages, and was really enjoying it, but I was also busy as heck, so I never really got around to actually going through it and reading it. But yeah, I want to read this at some point. This won't take long. I will take this on a train journey, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to take me a long time, but I do remember. And also, The Wolves of Willoughby Chase, if you're unaware, is about a girl, what's her name? Bonnie's her name, isn't it, I think? And she's on this train journey to see another family member, and there are these wolves on Willoughby Chase. It just seems incredibly interesting, and I enjoyed the writing style last time. So, H.G. Wells' The War of the Worlds. Classic alien invasion story. Never actually read it. Bought it recently. Really want to read it because, you know, it's H.G. Wells and a classic story, and I would love to read it. So, yeah, that's why. Some of these don't have a lot of explanation. Crossbones Yard by Kate Rhodes. This is a thriller book about murder. It's pretty straightforward. A place where murder, I'm assuming the Crossbones Yard is where the murder took place. It's only 300-ish pages. I haven't read it, obviously, because that's why it's on my TBR. Why am I saying that? I haven't read a thriller in a while. This was a book that I picked up in the Works when I was there. I just went, ooh, that looks fun, because the Works is one of those places that used to be open where I live. It's shut down now, which is a blessing and a curse, because it means I can't just go out and impulse buy books, because I might end up hating them, you know. But yeah, this I will read it at some point. Little House on the Prairie by Laura. What's her name? Laura Igath Wilder. Never read Little House on the Prairie. Always wanted to. I will at some point. And again, it's not a particularly big book because it's a children's book, so it's not going to take me a long time to read. It's literally 205 pages. So, yeah. Okay, another children's book, The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. This copy, if I'm right, does it have any writing on the inside? Yeah. Yeah. A family friend bought me this book. This is quite a heavy version. I'm assuming it's because the pages are thick. But very child-friendly, thick pages. But yeah, this book I never read. I loved the film as a child. I would love to read the book. I don't want to read the other ones, frankly, in the series, because in the Narnia series, because frankly I don't really care. But yeah, I'm gonna read it at some point. This is more of a collection. This is a huge collection. This is the Collins Complete Works of Oscar Wilde, and God, it is hefty. This is over 1,000 pages long, 1,270 pages long. This book is. Jesus. It contains all of Oscar Wilde. If you're unaware, Oscar Wilde was a writer in the late 1800s, the late 17th century, right? This has all of his all of his short stories, all of his plays, all of his poems, and all of his essays, and like journalism and things. This is a big book. I have read one of Oscar Wilde's works, which was The Importance of Being Earnest, which I think I've talked about on, if not this channel, I've talked about it before. Because I had to read it for school, but I also really enjoyed it, and I fell in love with Oscar Wilde's writing style, and I got this for Christmas, and now I will eventually read all of this book, but it's over 1,200 pages long, so it might take me a while to get to it, because I might be a little bit scared of it. Another random thriller book, Cut by Mark Rabb, and this one is, I think I'd heard of this book. I think I bought this because I'd heard of it, because apparently this was a thriller that was incredibly popular. But this, I don't really know a lot about it. I don't really know how to describe thrillers, because to me it's just like, oh, it's a thriller book. I can't tell you what happens because I haven't read it yet, so I don't know. But it's a thriller, a murdery thriller, if you can't tell by the cut. I don't know how comfortable I'm going to be with this book, because I get quite horrible with blood and gore, and I don't know if it's going to be particularly graphic. It is... How many pages long is this book? .474 pages, so it's a barging on quite big book, but it won't take me, you know, like a month to read. It won't take a huge amount of time to read. It's probably just above average for me. So, yeah, exciting. Another thriller that I bought impulsively in the works, I think. Okay, Terry Pratchett's Snuff. I have heard so much about Discworld series. So much about Terry Pratchett and his wonderful writing. And this book is about a policeman. Give me 1 second. Sorry about that, I was being interrupted by my brother. Anyway, Terry Pratchett's Snuff. This is about a policeman. I think he finds a corpse, maybe? Or something. But this is like a sort of... It's like comic fantasy, right? Terry Pratchett's known for comic fantasy, right? It looks interesting. And also this is a gorgeous cover, and I'm quite excited about it. But I bought this, and if you watched my haul video, my Christmas haul video 2019, you'll have seen me talk about this book already. But I was far less eloquent in that one, if I remember correctly. But yeah, okay, this is The Keeper of Lost Things by Ruth Hogan. This is about a guy, I think his name's Anthony Perdue, collecting, and he sort of is a collector of things. Because of trying to atone for a promise broken years before. This was an impulse buy that I thought looked interesting. And I do think it looks interesting. It's not particularly long, it's just under 300 pages, so it won't take me that long to read. And yeah, it looks incredibly interesting actually. I've heard varying reviews, but I'm not going to let them influence my reading experience when I eventually do get to it, because I clearly have a big list. Okay, this is The Last Olympian in the Percy Jackson series by Rick Riordan. I love Rick Riordan's writing. I've only ever read 4 of his books out of the tens that he's written. But I sort of fell into a reading slump while reading this series. I read the first 3 books and then I left it a while, and then I read the 4th one in the middle of a slump, and now I've kind of just been a bit about the series, but I want to continue it. And I want to finish this series at least, because I also own the entirety of the, not Magnus Chase, what's it called? Give me 2 seconds. Heroes of Olympus, that's what it's called, the Heroes of Olympus series. And I want to read those too, but I need to finish this first. So, yeah, this is, if you're unaware, Percy Jackson is a demigod, sort of fulfilling his destiny, or he has like a destiny to, it's interesting. It's just a very, if you've not heard of Rick Riordan and you're in the booktube community, I don't know who you've been watching. But yeah, it's just seems incredibly interesting and I want to finish it. This is a very big stir from all the other books I've talked about. Billy Connolly's Tall Tales and Wee Stories. This is a memoir / autobiography / wee stories and tall tales thing. I love Billy Connolly. Billy Connolly is a favourite comic of mine. I think he's flipping hilarious. And his tale about jojoba oil will never cease to I always find it really funny, and it just makes me lose it. I can't talk. This is how impassionate I am about Billy Connolly. I've always found him hilarious. I found his old stuff hilarious. I found his newer stuff hilarious. I just think he's really funny, and I want to read his book. And I've also been recommended it by friends. So yeah, I'm gonna read the book eventually. Camera's dying. Little Women by Louisa May Alcott. This is not, if you can tell, the full version of this book. This is a children's adapted version by Archie Oliver. I got this when I was a small child, and I love the idea of reading Little Women, but it's like 600 pages long and I don't know if I'll like it, and I already own this, so what I think I will do is read this, and if I enjoy it, it's very child friendly. Let me show you. Like, it's not like it's very, you can tell it's a children's book, but I'm going to read this, or at least read a few chapters of it, and if I discover I love it, I will buy the full book. But for now, we're keeping this because I have this along with my copies of Peter Pan and Black Beauty, and that are matching it, and I like the way it looks. But Little Women, again, if you're unaware, is the story of these girls, predominantly Jo, I think, who basically are Little Women and live their life as women in the whenever. In what time? Sometime, yeah, in the 1800s, right? 1800s? Yeah. And they're a family whose dad goes away to war, or yeah, during the Civil War. He's away in the army, and they have to work. They like work to help their mother and just sort of living their lives, and it just seems so delightful. But I want to give it a try, like a reserved version, before I buy the book, and just we'll see. But yeah, I've also just had it for a really long time, and it seems like a good place to start. Okay, Me by Elton John. I'm not gonna lie to you. This was a gift. This was a gift from my brother. He bought me this book because we were in we were in like Asda or something, and I saw it and I thought, oh, I should get that, and then I didn't actually get it, and then he got me it. It's such a big book, and he got me it because he loves me dearly and he's a nice person. But I haven't read it yet. I've always liked Elton John in theory, and because he's a gay musician a gay singer of the 80s, clearly I did, but I never really knew much about him until I watched Rocket Man and went, oh god, I get it, and then I wanted to learn everything about him. So, I did, yeah, that's how I sort of, that's how it went, basically. But yeah, this is his autobiography or memoir, or I never know the difference. I have never understood the difference between a memoir and an autobiography. Like, just, can someone tell me the difference? Because I don't get it. But yeah, I really want to read this, and I'm going to read it. However, I might get that and Billy Connolly's one in audiobook, because often I find autobiographies really weird to physically read. I'd much rather listen to their voices. Because I think Billy I don't know if Elton John has, but I think Billy Connolly did an audiobook where he read it. I don't know if I've made that up or not, but I feel like he did. Yeah, okay, moving on. Jodi Picoult's Small Great Things. This is a very different book from most of the other things. This is I don't know what you'd call it, because it's not. It's basically, it's about prejudice and justice. It is about there's two perspectives. So there is a black nurse, and the other perspective is a father of a child who's a father whose child is staying in the hospital, but he refuses to let her look after the child because she's black. And this follows him primarily in the start of it, I think, and his story and sort of how he becomes this monster that he seems to be. And it seems incredibly interesting, but I feel like, and obviously it's gonna be in a good way, and it's gonna be pro equality and not being a racist piece of shit, but it seems to focus quite heavily on the racist perspective, and I don't know if I care for that shit. Like, I feel like I just want to go, no, you're bad, I don't care where it came from, don't be a horrible person. But I'm still intrigued because it's Jodi Picoult, and because I've been recommended her a lot, and because I've been recommended this book a lot. So, okay. Another thriller that I just picked up on a limb is Before I Let You In. This is about a therapist, I think. Yeah, well, a psychiatrist. But she has a patient that knows things about the psychiatrist Karen, and she has a patient called Jessica who seems to know things about her. And it just seems incredibly disturbing and interesting. This is also Jenny Blackhurst, the same person who wrote How I Lost You, which I think, was also a #1 bestseller. So, yeah, that's all I've got for this so far. Not read it yet. Interested too. I don't know why I keep saying that. That's the whole point. I'm kind of doing this in a random order, so I apologise for the lack of consistency. The Good Bee, A Celebration of Bees and How to Save Them by Alison Benjamin and Brian McCallum. This is a non-fiction book about how to save the bees, because I want to know how to save the bees. I saw this and I went, shit, bees need saving, y'all, and bought it. Because bees do need saving, y'all, and y'all should buy it. It talks about, like, just how, like, literally, like, about bees. Like, bees in nature and how they react to us and all sorts of things. It just looks incredibly interesting, and I want to learn more and educate myself on these things. Because I care so passionately about them, but I don't often know a lot about them. I just learn a little bit and go, okay, I know which side I'm on now, but I need to do my research, ideally. Okay, another non-fiction book that I have is Fairies, the Myths, Legends and Lore by Skye Alexandra. This is a book on the lore of fairies, if you hadn't realised. It talks about fairies in different cultures, in different lores, in different things. There's, like, their characteristics and their behaviour and misbehaviour, and the relationships and basic fairy tales, and it also talks about fairies in different places. So, for example, let me find an example. What the fairies in the British Isles and Ireland's fae folk are very different to Northern European fairies and Southern European fairies and Slavic fairies and African fairies and Middle Eastern fairies. Like, in different cultures, they exist, but they seem, well, they're like, they are myths and legends and lore and everything, but they're seen differently. And I find that really interesting because fairies are a thing that I think are really interesting, and I wish they were in more books. Yes, okay. I wish there were more books about fairies, y'all. Yeah, okay, another thriller book, which was given to me by my mother, is Orphan X by Greg Hurwitz. This is about a KGB spy, I think. I think it's a KGB spy. Or it's like a spy that went on... Or no, it was an orphan, obviously, but it was a spy that sort of went on the loose, and then he's getting chased after. It's... Yeah. This author has written so many other books. Damn. Oh, it's the writer of I See You. Yeah, I knew I recognised the name. But yeah, this is a thriller about a running away orphan. It seems interesting. So, Jesus. So, we'll give that a go. Okay. This is an old book, and you can tell by its tatteredness, which is Ivan Illich's Deschooling Society. This is a book written in the 70s about, like, she's gone, I'll need to tape her together. This is a book about how school is, like, how school should be disestablished and the issues with it. And this was written in the 70s. And it's incredibly interesting to see the perspective then versus the perspective now. And the tagline is literally, is schooling the same thing as education? Which is an incredibly interesting question. And I got this from my mum, who owned it. And I just find it incredibly an interesting thing to talk about. It's also only 116 pages long, which isn't particularly long. So it won't take me long to get through, but it looks really interesting. So I'm going to have to, like, glue it together or something, but it looks interesting. Okay. Philosophy for Life, The Ideas That Shape Our World and How to Use Them by Mel Thompson. I'm interested in philosophy, and I want to learn about philosophy and the background of philosophy and stuff. This is sort of like it's a teach yourself book, so it's almost like a textbook, because there's like key ideas, and let me find it. And there's bits where it's like, remember this. You know, like, there's a lot of stuff. Key idea for life. Key idea. Build theories. Like, there's a lot. It's very textbooky, but it's not a textbook, and I just find it really interesting. And I want to learn more about philosophy and about different philosophers, and there's a lot of stuff about, there's a whole section about postmodernism, which I think is really interesting because that's where we are. But yeah, that. Okay. Another one on a similar topic, but not the same. Super Psychology, a totally non-scary guide to psychology and what it means, by Christian Garrett and Joanna Ginsberg. This is just a book. It's in a very similar format to the other one. However, it is more similar to that of a textbook. I don't know if this will be ever one of those books I read cover to cover. I might. out of pure interest, but it seems sort of like you would go to it for reference sort of thing. I think I picked these both up in the same day at the works again, which is, my weakness, along with Waterstones. Don't put me in a Waterstones because I won't leave without 7 books. But yeah, I want to know more about psychology as well. I did want to be a psychiatrist at some point in my life. I don't want to anymore. Maybe I'll go back to that one day, but I did at some point want to be a psychiatrist, which is I think why I picked up. Or a philosopher. I also wanted to do philosophy and teach philosophy. So, this is a big book. How big is this book? There's a big ass thing. Oh, it's not that big. It's just because when I see books like this, I just assume that they're huge, but they're not really. It's only 400 and something pages. This is Our History as Told in Diaries of the 20th. Our History of the 20th Century. Sorry, let me try that again. Our History of the 20th Century as Told in Diaries, Journals, and Letters. Compiled rather by Travis Ellsborough, which is a compilation of lots of essays and diaries throughout the 20th century, throughout Britain. It's so incredibly interesting. It looks incredibly interesting. I think this was also an impulse buy, but I love to know about history, and recent history particularly I find incredibly more interesting than like stuff from 300 years ago, because I don't really care because it's not relevant to me anymore. But recent history, as in within the last 200 years history, is incredibly interesting to me because it inflects a lot onto culture now. And I want to learn about this stuff. This has been sitting on my coffee table, and it is a very coffee table book, as you can see by the coffee on it. But I want to read some of this eventually because it looks incredibly interesting, and I think it's a really interesting format to learn about the recent past. The Silver Star by Jeanette Walls. This is a book. This is set in the 70s, I think. Let me see. It's sort of like a... Yeah, it's set in the 70s, and it's about some kids. I think it's middle grade, really. Yeah, it's a middle grade 70 book set in the 70s. There's sort of like a sci-fi mystery thing. It looked interesting, so I picked it up, really, is the extent of why I own it. This is random. Laura Graham, From Gilmore Girls to Gilmore Girls and Everything in Between, Talking as Fast as I Can. This is Laura Graham's memoirs / autobiography. I still don't know the difference. I bought this a long while ago, so yeah, it was a while ago that I bought it, and I don't really remember why. I think I just saw it and went, ooh, Laura Graham, I like Gilmore Girls, and then just bought it. But yeah, another autobiography that I probably won't give more than 3 stars because I'm weird with physically reading autobiographies. Okay, I've got 2 more individual books, and then I've got a few series to talk about. Okay, the second last single book is 5 Feet Apart by Rachel Lippincott. Rachel Lippincott, Miki Daughtry, and Tobias Iaconis. I think I've seen some stuff about this in the booktube community. To me, it seems a bit, and I know if it's not, I'm really, really sorry, but it seems to me a bit like a knockoff The Fault in Our Stars. I know it's not, and I'm really sorry to the people who wrote it if that's not the case and they put a lot of effort into it and it seems very similar or like very separate. But this is about 2 patients. Stella, who has out of control lungs, and Will Newman, who's stuck in the hospital. And they can't be any closer than 6 feet apart, even though they've like fallen in love. But they think, oh, there's no harm in us being 5 feet apart, and but it's said in a far more romantical and fancy tone than that. But yeah, I own it because I picked it up and went, ooh, I've heard about that, and I'll read it. And give it an average rating probably. But yeah, I have. Okay, so this is Carrie Hope Fletcher's When the Curtain Falls. Again, if you watched my December Christmas haul of 2019, my 2019 Christmas haul, book haul video, you will have seen this book already, but this is a ghostly showmance, because there was a showmance, and a showmance is a show romance, so during a play, the two characters playing the leads, or maybe not even necessarily the romantic leads, but they fall in love, basically. But there was a showmance in the 50s, and then I think the ghosts haunt the theatre, as ghosts often do. And then there is a modern day romance that is inlaid with the ghost stuff, which seems really interesting to me anyway. But yeah, Carrie Hope Fletcher's writing, I really enjoy her writing. I recently read, what's her book called? What is it called? I own it. What is it called? All That She Can See by Carrie Hope Fletcher. I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. And yeah, I'm just excited to read this book. Okay, so this is, okay, so I've got 2 series. Both of them are very classic and may surprise you. So for example, The Hunger Games. I've never read The Hunger Games. I know, I'm sorry. I never got around to it when it was really popular because I was too young to care. And I was like, I was around the age, I think I was 11 or something when these books were popular. So wait, when did they come out? What year did they come out? It was 2014, right? Oh, they were published in 2010, but the hype, well, when they were published, I was 7, but when they were like super popular and I was hearing about them a lot, I was in the sort of mindset of, oh, these are popular, so I can't read them, so they'll be horrible. So I never read them, but I would love to now, just for the sake of, having read The Hunger Games. But if I start reading the first one and I hate it, I will unhaul them, but, I'll find out. Another is the Legend series by Marie Lu, which is also a relatively ancient in the booktube community series. If I'm right in saying it's based on a retelling of Les Mis, but seems incredibly interesting to me. And obviously I've heard a million good things about this series, so I will at least read the first book, or at least read 100 pages of it. So yeah. And the last one, well, it's a singular book, is The Amber Spyglass by Philip Pullman. I am currently in the process of reading what's the second book in the series called? The Subtle Knife. I'm right now in about the first sort of 50 or so pages of that book, and I'm really enjoying it, and I'm definitely going to read this afterwards because I have really been enjoying this series. So yeah, I just want to continue on with the series and then eventually get the Books of Dust and enjoy all that stuff. But if you're unaware, his Dark Materials series is about, well, it's a fantasy series and it's hard to describe. I think I said before I started reading it was one of those books that before you read it you have no idea how to describe it, but I think after you've read it you'll also have no idea how to describe it. It's a sort of mid-fantasy, middle grade YA-ish novel series about this girl called Lyra and this boy called Will, separately and then together, I think. And it just seems interesting, and this is the final book in the trilogy of his Dark Materials. Wow, that was a long video. Thank you so much for watching. That was some number of books. How many? I couldn't tell you exactly how many. But a lot. The answer is a lot. That's how many. But I will get to them eventually. I've decided that until I've read all of these books, or at least enough of them that I know, like if I want to unhaul them, I'll unhaul them obviously, but until I have no physical TBR left, I am not buying any other books. So these will be all you'll be hearing about for the next year until I've finished all of them. So there's a spoiler warning for you to never want to read watch any of my book videos for the rest of the year. But yeah, thank you very much for watching this video. If you like this video, you know what to do. Please remember to drink your water, eat your vegetables, and peace out, I guess.